Hello and welcome back to part 2 regarding the 4 stages of teaching. I trust you've had the opportunity to view the video of David on behavioradvisor.com. For those of us who have stood in the shoes of that stage 2 teacher, those of us who have been through stage 2 of the 4-stage process, even now it's heart-rending to witness that. But it isn't just us who is experiencing these debilitating effects. Our ineffective behavior at stage 2 has effects on our students as well. The all too common scenario in our self-contained programs for kids with the emotional and behavioral problems is to put many kids lacking self-discipline together in the same setting, where they emulate the behavior of others, where they oftentimes reinforce negative behavior. A lot of our kids misbehave simply because they can do so with a stage 2 teacher. And that places our kids who are developing self-discipline, kids who want to turn over a new leaf, it places them in a conundrum, the horns of a dilemma. What choice do stage 2 teachers place upon students who are striving to make behavioral progress? What forced choice is given to them by stage 2 teachers? Think about it. Yes, they want to learn, they want to change, but if they comply with a teacher who's already being victimized by the other kids, that places them at a lower status than the non-respected instructor. Now, putting themselves in that lowly position sets them up for victimization by the bullies in the classroom, just as the teacher is getting bullied. A lot of our potentially model students misbehave in order to gain favor with those who really have the power in that situation. They're thinking, when that kid tells a joke, I've got to laugh. I need to side with the power figure in the classroom for my own protection. Does the description of stage 2 describe you and your classroom? If so, you do have some choices. We've heard experienced master teachers talk about their first year with these kids, and they moved into stage 4. We can do it too, by engaging in self-study. Unfortunately, some folks choose to stay wimpy. They feel guilty taking the paycheck, but they stay fossilized in stage 2. You could leave teaching. And surveys say that if you leave teaching, chances are you'll get paid more, you'll have less stress. But the people who've left teaching almost invariably report a sense of loss. They're so disappointed in themselves. They had the heart of the teacher, but that space is now a void. There's a hole in their soul. You could leave the classroom and stay in the school building, get a higher paying job in the building. You can become an administrator. You get to evaluate the disciplinary performance of others. The teacher send kids to you? Hey, just send them right back. Or you can suspend them if they create too many problems. The kids, not the teachers. You can go into guidance counseling, and you can deal one-on-one with the youngsters. Or maybe form some small groups that meet twice weekly to focus on certain issues. Yeah, you can work with the troubled ones. The kids, and not the teachers. And if the kids are misbehaving in your small groups or one-to-one, you just send them back to the class with a little note that says, Luisa is unable to benefit from counseling today, thus shirking their duties and placing it back onto you. Or you could earn a PhD. You can learn everything you didn't know or use back when you were in the classroom. You become a professor specializing in kids with behavior problems. Maybe you develop a very popular website, even write a book that claims to have these never-failed techniques, even though you've never actually used them with your own kid. Oh, I think I ought to plead the fifth here. If I go any further, I might self-incriminate. Too late, huh? Well, after that Freudian slip, I think a Freudian slip is something you wear under a Freudian dress, isn't it? Anyhow, moving on. Another choice you have available if you're a stage 2 teacher is you can decide to quit taking crap from these kids. Figuratively speaking, I hope. And we steel ourselves to get tough. Show them who's boss. Keep them under our thumb. And we find ourselves gravitating towards stage 3, the dark side. We're going to send back some of that hurt that was placed on us. We let emotional vinegar run through our veins and our brains and our thoughts and our decisions about kids, and we become a disciplinary stormtrooper. Now, stage 3s, while finding pleasure in working with certain kids, the good ones, so to speak, they've come to view most kids as the enemy to be conquered. You'll know you're moving towards stage 3 if you feel the way the person feels in this cartoon. Now, even teachers with the self-restraint of Mahatma Gandhi can start to feel this way if we don't have adequate training in positive and respectful behavior change strategies. Stage 3. The hurtful, harmful teacher, the one that's likely to let verbal firestorms come out of their mouths at various points. The junkyard dogs of our profession, the mean, the nasty, the ornery, at times vicious in their approach to kids. The ones who seem like they must have their underwear backwards and too tight and it's cutting off circulation to the upper brain, only the emotional lower brain is functioning. Well, but it works though, doesn't it? These teachers tried to be nice, and they found out that the only thing that works is letting them know who's got the juice, letting them know who's got the power. Why would we want to avoid this stage or quickly exit it? Why not yell, chastise, belittle, punish? It works. Or does it? There's a lot of research on punishment and the drawbacks to using it. Let's look at some of those. First of all, we've got to admit that punishment does work, but only in the moment that it is used, and only if the penalty is severe enough to catch the kid's attention and have the kid say, the benefits to showing this behavior do not outweigh the penalties that are being imposed upon me. Why do kids show behaviors? Because behaviors have a benefit. We've got to figure out what that benefit is and try to remove it. But punishment, if it is severe enough, will stop that behavior in its tracks. Problem is, in the future, that behavior will only be held in around the punisher, because punishment does not teach another reaction for that situation. Even though this person thinks they've taught that kid a lesson, no lesson was taught. That child did not receive instruction in another way to meet his or her needs or desires. Punishment does not teach another way of behaving. And so it pops out around other people. I know one teacher in particular. He had a very caustic, sarcastic sense of humor. He was witty, but it was hurtful humor. And if my kids stepped out of bounds, or any kid stepped out of bounds in his classroom, he would just lay into them. They feared his caustic verbal wit. They would hold in their behavior around him, but then they'd go to the next class, and all the tension, the stress would come out there, all the anxiety that had built up. This person failed to do their job in motivating kids, instructing kids, instead coercing them, placing the burden on another teacher. Punishment only works around easily intimidated kids, the ones we don't need to use punishment on to get them to behave. So punishment aggravates many kids. It tends to work only on those who are easily intimidated. We're also concerned that it shows kids how to use aggression. And it validates the use of aggression in the school. We pass the message, sorry, you can't do this to others, but then many teachers do it. Now, if that teacher's behavior works, so to speak, it does subdue behavior in the moment, the students say, "Oh, I just saw that. I think I may use that strategy in an attempt to win in situations." If it doesn't work, it makes us look weak. Either way, it does not serve the school, the youngsters, and one's fellow teachers. Another problem with punishment is kids become immune to it. They say, "You know what? I've experienced this before. It wasn't all that bad. I can live through it." I'm thinking about how once in a while I'll watch a boxing match on TV and watch these two pugilists go at it. One will hit another so hard that I go, "Oh!" And I'm thinking, if that were me, I would be down on my knees crying like a baby. It only angers the opponent. Why? Hey, I've been hit like this before. No big deal. I could live through it. We've got to remember that when we're teaching them a lesson, we really do want to teach. We want to instruct in a different way. We want to help that youngster meet needs and desires in a different manner. Teaching them a lesson doesn't. Additionally, punishment frightens or hurts many of our kids. Other ones, it agitates them, perhaps because they are frightened or hurt. This is their response, which is modeled for them by the teacher in the classroom, to handling that pain, to protecting their sensitive inner selves. A lot of our kids appear to be very hard, but oftentimes it's an eggshell. Hard but fragile on the outside, soft on the inside. Why else would we want to get out of stage 3? Because a growing number of administrators, parents, and our kids with behavior disorders will not accept this treatment. If we look at the intent and directives of positive behavior intervention supports, PBIS, you can find out more by going to the free podcasts and videos at behavioradvisor.com or to the PBIS.org site on the internet. But the intent and directives of PBIS and the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act condemn these practices. Many of these former practices are now banned from our schools. Oftentimes, too, the consequences that are available to us in the schools aren't half as bad as what many of our disruptive kids experience when they leave the school building and go back to their neighborhoods or their homes. And they look at what we have available in the way of punishment and they laugh. "This is it? This is your big gun? You're trying to threaten me with this? You don't know what goes on in other parts of my life." One of the things that strikes me most is that it's unbecoming of someone who's been given the esteemed title of educator. And these practices sabotage our dream of someday looking back at our career with great pride. This concludes part 2 of the series of podcasts regarding the 4 stages of teaching. In part 3, we'll further discuss stage 3 and how we move from that low level to the summit of effective and positive teaching, how we become a master teacher of kids with emotional and behavioral disorders.